hanging out with Dayton basketball today, as really excited to talk with associate head coach here at UD and Ricardo Greer.
What's up, fellas?
Bonjour.
Comment ça va? Comment ça va? There you go. That's some good French right there.
How many languages do you speak?
Fluently, excuse me. I speak English, as you can see.
I wish I'm happy because outside the intro, we weren't going much further than that.
We're gonna be stuck. I speak Spanish. My mom and dad were both from the Dominican Republic, so learned how to speak Spanish very young because my mom didn't speak English. So hablo español, and then I learned how to speak French in my time when I played in France.
Really cool moment here recently. You got to go back over to France, and you had your number retired.
Yeah, that was a great experience. It was the first team I played for when I started my career in France, STB Le Havre, and it was a really cool moment. They flew a couple of us back to the team. We watched the game, and then at the end of the game, they had a ceremony for us, and they put our numbers in the rafters. So that's going to be there for the rest of my life. So pretty cool.
I think folks are sort of familiar with your career at Pitt, and obviously what you've done here at the University of Dayton on the sideline. But you're in the French Basketball Hall of Fame. And I would like to think this past summer, you probably had a huge smile on your face watching that gold medal game. And like France has turned into a powerhouse for basketball. Sort of go back to your playing days. Was it always sort of basketball crazy, or have you seen this transition from the get-go?
Well, when I first got to France, you had a lot of young players that I thought were phenomenal. When you had Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, you had the Pietrus brothers, Boris Diaw, Tony Parker had just gotten drafted. So these young guys were just up and coming, and you could see that the talent was real. And then, you fast forward to now, and, the head coach of the French national team was actually my coach in France. And to see the talent that's there and that's still coming, it's just mind-boggling. So it's kind of a surreal moment for me watching these young boys play when they were really young and seeing what they're doing now. It's pretty cool.
I thought it was interesting. We got a chance to talk with Amael Latong, and he was kind of discussing his journey through basketball because they do it. It seems like completely different of what we know. Yeah. Sort of the high school game, the AAU circuit, and then playing at the collegiate level. Are you familiar with that? And did you see that over there in your time playing?
Yeah, of course. My son was born and raised in France for his first I want to say 7 to 8 years of his life, and that's what he did. Also, it was more about skill development and practice instead of just playing games all the time. So he got to learn how to play the game the right way. You see a lot of these kids that come from overseas, their IQ is through the roof because they learned the game before they play it consistently. And, instead of playing 5-6 games in the weekend, they play one game in the weekend and practice 6 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool to see how these kids develop too. And then now you can see it in these NBA drafts, all these kids from overseas getting drafted.
Well, and that brings me to my second point about sort of these youngsters and playing at such a high level. Last 2 years, NBA draft, and it's the French flag flying. Do you feel like that's only going to continue to grow and sort of what we're seeing here at Dayton with Amael Latong stepping out on the floor? Yeah,
I think that, you have a lot of young talent that's continuing to develop it in France, but not only France, across the world. And, in the next couple of drafts, you're going to see a lot of these kids from overseas getting drafted really high that people probably haven't seen a lot. But when they get to the NBA, you'll understand why these NBA teams are drafting them.
Let's talk about the world. For your professional career, 14 years, how many countries?
14 years, started my playing career in the Ukraine, was there for a year, and then I got back to France 1 year in England, back to France, spent 6-7 years in France, spent a little time in Croatia, and then got back to France.
And then in between all of that, you mentioned your parents. You played a long time in representing the Dominican Republic, correct?
Yeah, that was actually, you always as a young man want to represent the flag that, that your parents and yourself, were born and raised with. So, I got to play with a bunch of great players like Al Horford's dad. And then I played with Al Horford. So I played with dad and son, which was phenomenal. Played with some of the guys that, recently retired, like Charlie Villanueva and Francisco Garcia. But more importantly, I got to spend and play with my brother too on the Dominican national team. So got to play with him in the Dominican national team and also in Europe and won some championships with him.
Oh, that is so cool. And you got quite a few championships to your name. Yeah,
it's crazy because the first championship me and my brother won in France, we played against a team called Nancy. In the championship game, and then 3 years later we played for Nancy and won the championship for Nancy. So it was pretty cool, man. It was a pretty cool time in my life.
Going and experiencing basketball in sort of different countries, what was the best part in taking that in and I guess trying to take it all in?
I think that, the journey for me was the most important thing, being able to go and see different cultures throughout the world. I always look at France as my second home. They treated myself, my wife, Misty, and my kids like we were French, and they took care of us. Both my kids learned how to speak French. My wife, when she used to pick them up from school, have a baguette for them, and my kids love their baguettes. They'll have the French songs on the radio, and they'll sing their French songs, and I had no idea what they were talking about, Even with my son, if I didn't know something in the store and I had to ask, I told my son to ask because he spoke fluent French. So, the experience itself was phenomenal, and, every day I tell my wife how much I miss being there because, we built our family there. That's where our kids were raised. And, now the last 8 years being at Dayton, it's been phenomenal.
Dayton, you know it as his home, UD Arena. I do want to go back to March. It was a really neat moment for you as a dad because you got to see your son out on that floor and winning a state title.
Yeah, that was surreal. We were actually in Utah, and he was going through his state run with Alter, and I'm speaking to AG, and I'm like, man, we beat Arizona. I'm gonna have to fly back to Dayton because I got to go see my son play. But Coach Grant was phenomenal. Neil were phenomenal about, if that was to happen, I'll be able to come back. But, to see Coach Grant, to see some of the guys on the team, support my son and him being able to go out at UD Arena and win a state championship, was one of the greatest moments in my life.
Now, for your career as a high schooler, way back in the day, going to Pitt, I look at Pitt basketball as this incredible decade of the early 2000s, really 2001 to 2011. And there you are right at the front of it and playing in Madison Square Garden in the championship game of the Big East. As a New York City product, what was that like?
Man, I tell you what, like when you look back at it, seeing all my friends from Washington Heights, even it's funny, Kobe Bryant's dad was in the stands.
Oh my goodness.
Kobe Bryant's dad was in the stands cheering me on and cheering Pitt on. And it was surreal because, we weren't supposed to be in the championship game and we got to win 3 straight games and play Boston College. And, that's when I think that, the Panthers and that program took off. You had Brandon Knight, Julius Page, all them young guys that saw what it took to win. And from there, it was just like dynamite. Them guys, took that recipe. Coach Howland did a phenomenal job of getting them boys right. And, the following year, they just took it to another level.
Yeah, with Coach Howland, I know you got to play 2 seasons with him.
Yeah.
Did you kind of see where that was going?
Yeah, Coach came in and he knew he had to, change some stuff in the program. And he did a phenomenal job of being able to understand that we had talent, but we also had to be, the culture had to change. And he did a great job of recruiting the right guys to come in there. And, next thing you know, Coach Holland, man, he didn't mess around. It was defense. You had to play hard. You had to be, you had to get after it. And, you had to leave it on the floor. And that's what we did,
Definitely sort of laying the foundation there and the success that came after it. You go on to this incredible career professionally. But when did it hit you that you wanted to get into coaching?
Late, very late. I honestly didn't feel that, this was something that was in the, top of mind for me. I was playing, I was enjoying doing that. And then I remember sitting down with my wife maybe 2 to 3 years before I retired. And we are just talking about, what I want to do. And, I see a lot of young French kids that were playing professional basketball. They weren't getting educations and were just playing. And then all of a sudden, 3, 4 years later, in 5th or 6th division in France and weren't doing exactly what they expected to do. So I was like, man, I just want to help these young kids grow. I want to see if I can help them get to the States and get education, but also I just want to give back to, kids like myself that, grew up trying to figure it out, and me being able to do that will help them, but also, I got to give some of this knowledge back. So, my wife was like, I think that would be a great idea. And interestingly enough, I had built a relationship with Donnie Jones at UCF and never asked him about coaching or anything. we just built a great relationship, love him to death. He's one of my favorite people in the world, and, he asked me my last year if I was interested in coming back to coaching. I still had a couple of years of contract in Europe, and, I spoke to my wife about it, and she said, if you want to do it, then let's do it. So I decided to retire early and get into the coaching business.
It was a good decision.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
When looking at grabbing the clipboard, grabbing the whistle, what's been the biggest satisfaction of coaching?
I think for me personally is the developmental piece of seeing these kids come in a certain way and being able to grow them to become the best versions of themselves, like Coach Grant says all the time. Was able to do that with Coach Jones and Coach Dawkins at UCF, watching Taco Fall grow to who he was, guys like Matt Williams and stuff like that. And then you come here and you got guys like Obi, Jalen Crutcher, guys that came with us into the program our first year and seeing the success and seeing what they're doing. And then you move down the line, all the other guys that were able to go play pro, like Ryan Mikesell, Ibi Watson, you got Jordy Chimanga, and the 2 guys, Deron, Tamani, that for me, it's fulfilling. It's not only just about making it to the NBA, fulfilling your dreams. And if we're able to help you do that, that makes me really, really happy.
Well, it has been a fun stretch, and you've been a huge, huge part of it. Appreciate you giving us a few minutes today.
Anytime. Bonjour, comment ça va? Merci, adios.
What he said.